Would you die for a lie?
What was that puzzle piece? People would tell me, oh, the disciples really believed that Jesus appeared to them resurrected because they were willing to die for that conviction. And I would say, that doesn't convince me. So what? In World War II, kamikaze pilots crashed their airplanes into boats. Why? Because they thought if they died that way, they'd go to heaven. Today, why would a terrorist crash into the World Trade Center in an airplane and kill himself and a whole bunch of people? And then somebody clarified. They say, wait a minute. The terror attacks of September 11th and the disciples being willing to die for their convictions. The difference is those hijackers who hijacked the plane and crashed them into the World Trade Center did not know for a fact if they died that way, they go to heaven. They believed it with all their heart. They were taught it. They believed it. They had faith in it. And having faith in it, they were willing to die that way. That tells me nothing about the truth of their convictions. Now, let's think about the disciples. Of all human beings who've ever lived on the planet, they were in a unique position. They were there. They touched the resurrected Jesus. They talked with him. They ate with him. Of all people who ever lived, they knew the truth about whether he had returned from the dead and proved he's the Son of God, because they were there. They knew the truth. Knowing the truth, they were willing to die for it.
There's one thing about the disciples' deaths that people often miss. People absolutely can die for something that's false. So martyrdom by itself doesn't prove Christianity. But that's not really the Christian argument. The question is, what did these disciples actually believe they had seen? The New Testament doesn't portray them as saying, we believe Jesus rose because our religion teaches it. Peter says, we were eyewitnesses of his majesty, 2 Peter 1 verse 16. And in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says Christ died, was buried, was raised, and then appeared to Cephas, the 12, and numerous others. Now here's the important distinction. A Muslim who dies believing Islam is true may be completely sincere, but he wasn't an eyewitness to Muhammad. The disciples, if their testimony is historically reliable, were claiming something radically different. We saw him alive after his death. That's why the early Christian proclamation matters. Christianity didn't begin with, here's a philosophy we invented. It began with a historical claim. Jesus died, he was buried, and God raised him. Paul even says in 1 Corinthians 15, if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile.